What's poppin', everybody? Hello and welcome to Popcorn Culture. My name is Ben Carlin and I am your host. Here with me today is my brother Jay, who will be in every episode.
I would like to think of it as more of like a co-pilot situation, given our recent experiences.
I mean, there is the captain and the co-pilot, so I'm fine with that.
Okay. But it's not like a special guest pilot, is what I'm saying.
Okay, I see.
Guest piloting this flight today will be...
Oh my gosh, can you imagine?
Right.
Yeah, it's like Harrison Ford,
Yeah.
and it's like, no.
Hey, yeah, I don't know if I'm excited or worried.
Wouldn't it be funny though if like pilots were just like celebrities in their own right? So it was like if you found out that you had like so-and-so pilot, you're like, whoa.
What? You flown with that guy before?
Yeah, it's like, I've been on his plane. I mean, the touchdown, I can't even tell you. Like
I didn't even feel it.
I didn't even feel it. Yeah, it's like you think you know a good touchdown and then you ride.
And then
you're like, whoa.
Exactly.
Oh man. Smooth as molasses.
Smooth as molasses.
Being poured into a bucket of cream on a hot summer evening.
That sounds smooth. The smoothest.
I don't even know if it does. I just had like sometimes I'm like, I could record a podcast that's nothing but my inner monologue.
Yeah.
And it's just like because especially if I'm not paying attention and putting my effort into talking continuously, then like my conversation can go just about anywhere, like specifically to saltine crackers.
Yeah.
You know
it's
what?
Like,
it's like I don't know why I said saltine crackers, but like it's the word that was at the end of my that I had at the end of the sentence.
Well, it's interesting you brought up specialty pilots, because do you know who I bet, given the opportunity, and he never was, would have been a tremendous pilot?
Oh, tell me.
Abe Lincoln.
Abe?
You just know.
The nearly undefeated wrestling
right
superstar / president.
Lincoln would have been
pirate.
a great pirate pilot.
Oh yeah, you know that what Lincoln would have done. All right, so everybody knows that Lincoln ruled the high seas, but if given the opportunity, would have ruled the high skies.
Hey, absolutely, he would have invented sky pirating. You know,
he would have
been up there with like a blimp or a zeppelin or something.
Most certainly. Yeah. I mean, it would have had to have been something that could have stayed in the air because that was sort of his thing. In the same way that his ship stayed out to sea at all times,
right?
His blimp,
That's
it never comes down.
Right, like we all know the president lives in the White House, but Lincoln spent most of his time in his blimp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
ran
agree.
the country. Yeah, how are you supposed to see the country unless you can like see a large amount of the country at once?
Now I'm starting to wonder why we have a physical White House and not a white blimp.
A white blimp.
You know, it's like
who's
like
to say we don't. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if we just did.
If
there was just like a helicarrier style aircraft that the president spends most of their time actually on. Like, yeah, you don't ever actually know where the president is. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
What I would actually super prefer is a scenario where like in the middle of the country, so like let's just say like in Kansas, there's just like a giant bolt that sticks out of the ground and the blimp is actually tied on like a really big rope. And it just sort of like it's like it can't really go anywhere. It rotates in a great big circle around the country at all times. Okay, so if you want to get super tinfoil hat,
oh boy.
Okay,
wow.
Yeah. This is like my I don't know, tinfoil hat theory / just one of those things that I've seen said before, and I'm like, yes. That does seem true. It's twofold. One of them is that like there's I feel like a very recent and very big conversation about billionaires as people in society and how they exist and this immeasurable wealth that now exists amongst very few people and stuff. One of the things that I have seen spring up as one of these tinfoil hats is this idea that it's like really what's happening is that there are people who are much wealthier than the people who we can name as the wealthiest people.
Right, like Bezos.
Like Bezos or something, or Bill Gates or Warren Buffett. It's like the really rich people know how to also stay anonymous.
Right.
It's like nobody wants that target on their back.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's like just it's like that's the true wealth, is that you have so much that nobody even knows that it's there.
That's like it's like Crazy Rich Asian level rich.
Right.
Where this is because like their whole thing is that they live in Singapore, and there's like Singapore has its version of Central Park called Tyersall Park. I believe, at least in the book.
Okay.
Slash
Like,
anything.
So you're not sure if that actually exists in the real world.
Yeah, I assume it does. That Tyersall Park is real, but like this would be like the level of wealth this would have to be would be that like secretly, unbeknownst to all of us, there is a family estate in the middle of Central Park, and we're not even aware of it. That's how rich these people are.
Oh, sure.
Right? Like, can you imagine if you were just like, wait, you telling me someone lives and owns real estate in the middle of Central Park,
right?
And people don't know?
It's like
that's how rich you'd have to be.
How much is a 1,000 square foot New York City apartment? Take that into consideration. Digest it a little bit. It's a lot. And then how big? Hold on, I'm Googling and talking at the same time. How big is Central Park in acres? In acres. Hang on. We're getting it.
Okay, we're gonna figure it out.
840 acres, right? Okay. So, imagine for a second that there's a scenario where you own like 25 acres inside of New York City.
Right.
You know, it's like, what?
Like, excuse me?
It's like we can go out and have like a bonfire in our backyard and nobody knows, you know? It's like,
that's the other thing. That it's right there in the middle and no one knows.
Right.
You can't even see it.
That would be so unreal.
It's unreal.
Okay.
The secret estate in Central Park.
Yes.
Do you know who actually lives there, Ben?
Abe Lincoln.
Lincoln!
It's gotta be Lincoln.
Maybe that's where his treasure is.
Lincoln is immortality. I don't know how Abe Lincoln became the official presidential representative of the pop, but it's happened.
He's the one true president of the pop.
Our one true Prez. We should like maybe like stick a $5 bill into our pop sign or something, or like have a rubber duck with a $5 bill on it or something. I don't know.
Hilarious.
Yeah, I feel like there's got to be something there. So we'll think of it. It'll come to us.
By the way, if some of these Lincoln jokes aren't landing, if you missed After the Final Pop, or if you're not on Patreon where you can listen to After the Final Pop, the last one we ran down the top 10 unknown facts about Lincoln, which are all actually true and kind of unbelievable.
True.
But it is live and public to anyone who wants to watch it. We like took down the paywall for this particular episode on our Patreon page if you want to go check it out.
Yeah, so if you would just like to get like a sense of what After the Final Pop is, it's available at our $5 tier on Patreon. This was a particularly fun and funny episode that we recorded. We will have a link to it in the show notes if you would like to
link into it.
Wow. A link into it in the show notes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We will do that. Otherwise, if you would just like to go on your own browser, you can head on over to patreon.com/popcornculture. Yeah, so there's that. Okay. Anyway, so moving on to my other tinfoil hat conspiracy. Well, as long as we're talking about the president living inside of a blimp that is anchored in Kansas.
As long as we're there.
As long as we're there. I mean, it's like there is a part of me that has had this belief system before that okay, let me preface this by saying this is a tinfoil hat. This is not like a hardcore like Ben Carlin belief or anything like that. It's just the difficulty of like navigating the waters of sociology, which is like, you know, the collective psychology of all people,
study of human behavior.
Yeah. like in this collective scale or whatever. It's almost like I can't imagine that we are going through these motions as randomly as we might think we are. Like the thought that has occurred to me before is that like in the same way that like have you ever heard that the TSA is almost like referred to as like it's like security theater or something? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I'm not familiar with this. No.
Oh my goodness gravy. Now I have to be correct. I thought you were going to have exactly where I was going with this. Hold on. Hey, and we're back. Okay, so security theater is the practice of taking security measures that are intended to provide the feeling of improved security while doing little or nothing to achieve it. An example of security theater includes tightened airport security measures in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks. So this is like the idea that the TSA basically gives you the sense that there's like a lot of steps being taken, but maybe it's more the charade that continues to allow for safety more than actually effectively stopping things from happening.
Okay, it's like the belief that you will be caught if you even try prevents you from trying.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
I've
and the fact that you have to take your shoes off and remove your laptop and go through all these weird, like pack your shower stuff in a Ziploc bag and you can only bring this much. Like, it all makes you feel like if I had to go to all these precautions, everyone had to do it and they're checking for all these things and that means everything is safer.
Yeah.
Like you feel safer because you had to go through all these steps.
Exactly. Yep. And so the idea is almost that if you were to apply that same thing to sort of like politics on like a very grand and big scale, is almost this idea of like, it's like what we're seeing are like the characters inside of the show that is actually like the thing that helps move the pieces of the puzzle around in a much greater sense. So it's almost like these things happen and they happen and this conversation happens and the disputes happen with the idea being that like it causes the public to then have a conversation or it's a way to like gently shift the way that people look at things.
Yeah.
I guess. So it's like you have to gradually get people to like shift the way that they might view particular topics or whatever, but you can't, like, people can't change abruptly. Like, they feel very comfortable inside of like the ways in which they may view the world. And so it's like, in order to actually do this, it's like you have to be so many steps removed that there's almost like a marionette type of thing going. It's like they're like putting on a show, and the show is what actually allows us to progress forward. On some, I feel like this sounds very like negative, and to be fair, that would, I mean, if we were like unknowingly a part of some big thing, that would be sad. I suppose the positive sentiment that I have behind all this is that there is like a group of levers being pulled for the good of humanity, and it's like all of the things that happen are hopefully driving us towards better humanity.
Well, I think this is just like social change just takes a long time, and you're right, like people don't like to change, like rarely change super abruptly, but like the more it's like brought up, the more it can be incorporated into like larger scale like media stuff, and like the more it does it, the more it just becomes normal, and then it's just like sort of happening.
Right.
And so I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, I think some degree of that is happening. Like people are like the people who are trying to make social change happen on like a really wide scale know that it's not going to happen like tomorrow everything's fixed.
Right.
That it's like gonna take like decades even to get there.
right. So I suppose, like the curiosity there then is that like each individual like step or piece of change or whatever the case may be, it's like like almost as if someone standing 2,000 feet up in the air is able to look at it and be like, okay, it's like we need to get from point A to point B, but there's a bunch of points that we have to go through to get from point A to point B. And each of those little points inside of like our world, even in the scope of our lifetime, may feel like we might live through like 1, 2, 3 points of this entire like progression. And the idea would almost be that like it's like a very slow moving process. It's like you have to inch through each individual thing. And I suppose I try to reassure myself that as things happen in the world, that maybe it's all we're going in the right direction.
Forward.
Yeah.
In the right. It sounds like Peter and Valentine's plan in Ender's Game a lot.
It is a lot like that.
Yeah.
That's a very good. Okay, so if you have not read the book Ender's Game, for one, pause this, go and read it, and then come back.
The whole book.
The whole book. I'm just kidding.
Ender's Game, another book you can't unread.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Ender's Game is so Ender's Game is a fantastic book about sort of like a couple of different things. There's almost the idea like that the thing that will achieve world peace is an alien invasion, in a sense. And Ender's whole mission is to go and be a like the person who's tackling the alien invasion. But then his brother and sister are staying back on Earth. And basically what they were smart enough to realize was going to happen is that as soon as we stopped being unified over the battle against the buggers up in space, that we were going to all then direct our focus back at each other.
And the point is that like Ender and Peter and Valentine are all like amongst the 3 smartest children ever born.
Right. Yeah. So like, I mean, you're talking about like, if you've ever watched like Big Bang Theory or something, like Sheldon level intelligence inside of like a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, but also more based in military tactics and less in astrophysics, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah. Where am I going with this? But anyway, yeah. So back on Earth, his 2 siblings, this is what they start doing is they basically like assume these identities and like they start really small and they slowly build like followings, and they're basically putting themselves into a position of power for the day when the war against the buggers
they
is
weren't
over.
smart. Like they missed whatever exact alignment was needed to be the ones chosen to go like lead the military or whatever, which is what Ender gets chosen for.
Right.
But like they're super smart enough to realize that Ender is smart enough to win the war, and they know what's going to happen when he does. And so like they spend their whole lives positioning themselves to be in the exact right positions of power for when that day comes. And sure enough,
that day comes.
Yeah. Spoilers. Anyway, you've probably read Ender's Game. Probably. Anyway, we've been talking about theater and space and wars. So I feel like maybe we are circling around what we are definitely going to talk about today, which is what you and I did earlier this week, which was go into an extremely immersive theater experience involving Star Wars and Disney World's brand new Galactic Starcruiser experience.
If this wasn't the best segue in the history of popcorn culture, I don't know what was.
Oh, thank you.
We really set ourselves up nicely to just like, I mean, like the tracks were built.
They were there.
I mean, they were oiled. The guy pulled the lever and we were able to switch over. Anyway, so that's a train analogy. But yes, so we were invited down to Disney World to experience the Galactic Starcruiser aboard the Halcyon. And it was an experience that is like hard to articulate. Like it was an unbelievable opportunity to get to go and be a part of this, because near as I can tell, short of the select Disney like staff cast members who had been invited in to go through the experience, we were otherwise like the first group of people to have the experience.
Yeah.
So in case you're unaware of what this is, Star Wars announced several years ago that they were going to have this like immersive Star Wars resort, which I almost feel like is a really poor selection of words.
Yeah, it doesn't, like, even when I heard about it, like the way it was described to me is that like everyone there will be like in character, and which is true, but like I couldn't even conceptualize entirely what it would be like, because like in my mind it was like, okay, this will be the hotel, and while you're at the hotel everyone will act like they're in the Star Wars universe, but then like you'll leave and you'll go in the parks, but when you come back you'll be back in like the Star Wars universe or something.
Yeah,
it's like
right. Yeah. And like people had sort of made mention of the idea that like, like stormtroopers might be patrolling the halls, and like you might have like characters and stuff, and that there is this like underlying LARPing, live action role playing experience that like you can participate in if you want to. And it's like it's underselling what it actually is by like an immeasurable value.
Right. Like it's to call it a hotel is the wrong like category almost. Like you do sleep there for 2 nights.
Right.
There are rooms that are hotel rooms, but it is not like just where you're sleeping. Like it's much more like you have gotten on a like a cruise or something.
Yep.
And you are Like it's not like this is just where you sleep and the rest of the day you're out at the parks. Like the whole thing, the whole like experience is your stay at the parks. Like you're not really going to be like, most of the fun is on
inside
the
of
ship.
Inside of the Halcyon itself. So it's like once you board, it's really odd, but like, I mean, they have gone to such lengths to ensure that like at no point in time during your stay do you like see the state of Florida.
Right.
You know, it's like you enter the doors to begin your journey, and short of a scenario, because you do go into the parks on the full day that you're there, into Galaxy's Edge, which is like the Star Wars area of Hollywood Studios. Short of a scenario where you leave Galaxy's Edge, which you would do of your own accord, that would be a choice you would make. Like, you know, you could do that if you wanted to, but if you choose to stay in Galaxy's Edge, then literally throughout the entire experience from start to finish, you never leave a fully and completely 100% curated Star Wars environment.
Right.
Which is, it's funny because I have a friend back home here who has been very tuned into it. It seems like he's had like his like finger on the pulse of like the general opinions, feelings towards this particular.
Like he was someone who was really interested in knowing whether this was worth doing it and has been following it the whole time.
And I feel like, yes, I feel like largely, like I was so excited to tell this friend that I was going, because if anybody was going to care, it was going to be my friend Mark. And when I told him, I almost feel like his reaction was really like subdued, maybe frustrated, like not envious, you know, like it wasn't what I expected.
Right.
It was this like, oh, okay, that you mean that new super overpriced resort that Disney's putting together? And I was like, huh, okay. I can honestly tell you that is not how I expected you to react to this. And what's interesting about it is I sort of got like the feeling of where he was coming from. And then I was very curious when I got there. I was like, what is this going to be like? Like, this is someone whose opinion on fandom related things I actually do trust.
Yeah.
You know, like I have asked him his insight on things before. He's attended, you know, like Marvel premieres and stuff with us, and typically is like a great point person just because he's so leaned into the fandoms himself.
Right.
In a way that I would say none of my other friends, you know, out here, you know, in Roanoke are.
Right.
And so as I get down there and I start going through this experience, I'm like, man, this is like unbelievable. So it's like the second night there, and he shoots me a text and he's like, oh man, I'm sorry, I forgot you were at the thing or whatever. And I was like, man, this is like really cool. Like, I don't know what you heard, but I'm like surprised by it. And it was even funny because I was having such a hard time convincing someone who was actually my friend, like, that it was really cool. And I'm like, man, I don't know how. Because once you've seen it, it's like once you've seen the inside and once you understand what it is, you get it. But what occurred to me is I was like, this is really hard to explain.
I mean, because there's no like points of comparison that you can make, because it's like such a one of a kind sort of experience.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like hotel or even resort is the wrong thing. If you go to a hotel or resort at Disney World, typically what that means is that like they all sort of have like their own sort of theme to it. So if you go to like the Polynesian, everything is like Polynesian themed, and the food is that way at the restaurants, and the gift shops have unique things, and all of the architecture looks very specific and islandy, and the pools have like island themes to them, and there's totem poles places, and there's palm trees, and like everything is sort of under that theme.
Right.
Yeah. And if you think this is just going to be like the Star Wars themed hotel, and there's going to be views of space out your window, and it's just going to be their stormtroopers in the hall, and the pool's going to have funny colors because this is a space water pool or something, like, no, wrong. You're thinking about it completely wrong. It is not a resort in the traditional capacity at all. It is only a hotel in that you sleep there.
Yeah.
But it is just, you sleep there because the experience itself is 2 days long.
Yeah.
If not a little bit, I guess a little bit longer. But like it's more like you went to a Broadway show, except instead of sitting in the audience in chairs watching it, you were one of the extras walking around in the background, except the main characters keep interacting with you and pulling you into the story.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, it's just ongoing all the time.
Yeah.
Too. So it's like once you're in it, you've got like an itinerary, and it's like, you know, you're going to like lightsaber training. You're up on the bridge helping the ship navigate through like an asteroid field, and these things that you're going and doing, not only are they kind of fun in their own right, but they are also progressing the plot.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're in an asteroid field for a specific reason. And like while you are inside of the asteroid field, one of the main characters of the plot line is going to like come in with an additional piece of plot. Like, because, you know, here's the thing is that, like, you know, everybody needs the ability to go and work the bridge. Like, there's not enough room on the bridge for every single person who's staying in the resort at one given point in time to all be in there at once. And so the thing that's really interesting about it is that, like, you will have different time slots where you get to go in and work the bridge, and other people have different times where they get to go and work the bridge. But the thing is that everybody's version of working the bridge is going to be slightly different, because each person each group will have a different main character who comes and interrupts their time on the bridge for a different plot related reason.
Right.
And so all of these different plots are all kind of like contributing, but that means that everybody gets to go into an asteroid field for a slightly different reason, but they're all the same story.
Right.
If that makes sense. So it's, you know, like during ours, we had like a member from the First Order come barge in and sort of like take over the bridge. And other people may have had like the captain of the ship barge in and take over the bridge. And both of those contributed in ways that made like logical sense from your perspective.
Yeah, to the overall story, so that it'll all merge together conveniently at the end.
Right. But the thing that I think is the most kind of like unreal or unbelievable aspect of it is like what the crew, the actors themselves are pulling off by like what they contribute to your experience on the Halcyon. Because during this time, like, for one, the main people themselves will learn your names. Like,
yeah, like the regular crew members who would otherwise be working the cruise ship.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like everybody will start to like talk to you directly by name.
Yeah.
Which they pick up so fast.
Super fast.
But additionally, it's like they've all got like these backstories, you know, like in every single direction.
Right. It's like, what's very interesting is that they're talking to you as just members of the crew, like who are working the ship and who are trying to make sure that you have a great vacation aboard your time on the Halcyon. But there is this like backstory element to them that is also like part of the greater story. Like they want to make sure you have a great time, but also the crew members are all really excited that Gaia, the international pop star, is going to be performing on the ship tonight. And they're like, "Are you excited about Gaia?" And you're like, "Oh." So like now they're like pulling you a little further into the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So you get it. It's like I think the very first person we talked to, it was like, you know, they were kind of like showing us around like the gift shop or something, like, "Oh, like, did you guys hear about Gaia's performing tonight?" And we're like, you know, it's kind of like one of those things where we're like, no, like that's cool. But like, this is like, in terms of the scale, like the ranking of like where these people, like what roles they play in the overall narrative, they're probably more like on the smaller end of the spectrum. So like you might think of it sort of just like this is just a crew member in the more literal sense, like as a fellow human being, like,
yeah,
like, "Hey, did you hear that guy is performing tonight?" And it's sort of this kind of like, are you just talking to me in a more like candid state, you know?
Yeah.
Or is this part of like the character? And maybe it's not even totally clear from the word go. And then you'll meet with like a slightly higher ranking person within the narrative, and they'll bring up Gaia, and you're like,
Everyone's really excited about Gaia.
everybody. So, but like by the time Gaia shows up, it's like so much hype has been built about it that you're like,
yeah,
all right. Which is all very cool. But the other thing that's kind of happening, so you've got like the main central through line, like the main narrative, the main story, but there is an enormous amount of improvisation that's going on.
Yeah.
So like in order to give everybody these like very special touches, like these moments where like they get to sort of experience it, in a way that is very tailor fit to you, your person individually.
Yeah.
It means that like the actors know how to deviate from the main storyline enough to like sort of like let you dictate where the path is going to go, but then also guide it back.
Yeah.
So it's like there aren't really side quests necessarily, but you and the cast can deviate a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they'll bring it back. And it's like they're trained well enough, they know the story well enough that they are able to do that.
Yeah. And it's like I think the closest we came to like some sort of side quest, if you want to call it that, was on the final night. We were talking with one of like the Jedi the lightsaber trainers.
Yeah.
And she like pulls us aside and is like, okay, now you guys might not know this. And she like tells you a little bit about Gaia, and she's like, do you follow Gaia? Are you with me on that? And you're like, oh yes, of course, because you want to like play the game. She's like, okay, Gaia is going to be here at 6:55. Can you give her this specific message? And she gives us this like 7-layer passphrase.
Yeah. It's like the rising sun, the two moons on the,
Yeah. And you're just like, oh, yes. She's like, okay, 6:55 here, be there, tell it to her. She'll know what it means. And you're like, this is amazing. Okay, great. And like we were so excited because we felt like, oh my God, so like we're in on something
like
now.
we got picked.
We got picked to do a thing. And so we're like 6:55 comes and we're just like looking everywhere for Guy because but like she never shows up.
Right.
And we're like, oh no. Like this is such a bummer. We didn't get to do the thing. But then like later we ran into our lightsaber trainer girl again. And we were like, we couldn't meet Gaia. Like she wasn't here. She's like, she wasn't here. Okay, don't worry. We can still work around this. And she just takes you, it's like, whatever you told Gaia, it didn't matter. She was just going to come tell you to meet the girl back here again. It's like clearly somewhere in the background narrative, there's like, the girl we talked to was told, like part of her script is find a small group of people to give a passcode and they'll be, because we know Gaia will be here then. And Gaia knows to be listening for the passcode from somebody.
Right.
And she'll pass it along. But clearly somewhere else in the narrative, she was held up and couldn't be where she needed to be, which like interrupted this storyline, but they were able to just pivot it right back on course anyway.
Right. Like you're able to like find your way back very, very quickly. And it's funny too, because it's like you as like the like passenger on this journey, you don't really know exactly like the roles that all these people are playing. And so like the fact that you could like literally interrupt somebody from something that they're like narratively supposed to be doing is just an incredibly real possibility. It's like,
right.
Like there was one point in time where there's this like smuggler character and we had a passcode that we were supposed to give him based on everything. And I spotted him at dinner. And so like, he's like walking up and I'm like, hey, like I need to talk to you about something. And he's like, what's up? And it's like, literally in the process of me doing this, he was like supposed to be going on stage to introduce Gaia,
right?
Like for the first time,
like for everyone eating dinner, like for the show,
for 50% of the people on the ship. Like this is like a huge moment, and I like literally, and his whole thing, like he can't just like look at you and be like, no, I'm sorry, like I'm busy with something. It's like he kind of had to like humor me long enough to be like, we will meet after this. And sure enough, he was able to get back up on stage. He was able to introduce her. And then afterwards, he found me and was like, what's up?
It's like, I need to talk to you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
So it was like, it was very good. It was very good, like the way they were able to like adapt to it and everything. I was really impressed with the cast and crew. But like, it was just from the moment you get on, like if you're wondering what it's going to be like when you're on, like when you get there, they hand you like this little, I guess it's an iPhone, but it's called your data pad or whatever. And it just has this whole schedule of events that you're supposed to go throughout the day. And like they fill it up such that there is something happening every like 30 minutes for you.
Yep.
Like that you if you don't want downtime, you do not have to have downtime.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then like so it's also color coded. So like all like stuff in blue, I think, for example, was all sort of like optional things. But if it was in yellow, like you need to be here to make sure you're keeping up with the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And that was the other thing too, is that it was very interesting to like there are these like moments of realization where you're like, oh my gosh, like because these people had made different decisions so far, they are now involved with the plot that it's like you're in the main atrium. They've been able to get everybody back to the main atrium, and you're like watching a plot unfold, and you're like, these people were given a mission that was nowhere near my data pad.
Right.
And it's like, that's kind of interesting.
It is.
Like they're doing something. Should I have been doing that?
I think it's good going in with a certain like knowing a little bit what to expect.
Yeah.
So like if we went back again, I don't think I'd be thrown off. There was certain points in it where there was this like feeling of like feeling left out, or like, did I make the wrong decisions, or did I miss anything? Because the way they sort of like schedule, or the way it like sort of advances, is you'll get like comms or communications or messages from the various characters who you're seeing around the ship, and they'll say like, oh, can you go do this for me, can you meet me here, or go find this person and say that. And then typically whenever you get to that next checkpoint, you'll have like your little wristband and you'll scan it in and you'll talk to the person. And really what happens is, because you scanned in, that sends a signal to your data pad like, oh, this person completed the task,
Right.
here's the next thing they need to go do. But you know, we cleared out our comms. It's like we feel like we did everything it said.
Right.
And then sure enough, they're like, yeah, all of a sudden you'd see this like huge group of people like escorting a character like secretly away somewhere. And you're like, well, what's happening over there?
Right.
Yeah. And it's like, what's happening is that along the way, when you're getting the messages, it'll give you choices like, you know, you'll get a message from the lieutenant of the First Order, and he's like saying like, can I count on you to, you know, spy for me? And you can respond to him like, yes, what do you need me to do? Or like, I fight for the resistance, or, you know, whatever.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, you're kind of like picking, you're picking your line, so to speak. And then, and based on that line, it's just going to take you with one of the main characters somewhere.
Right. So amongst the available paths you can take, it seemed like there was like 3 main ones. There was like the, Resistance, or the First Order, or like the Scoundrel, sort of like the morally gray one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a lot like playing some of the Star Wars video games.
It's a lot like that, because when you talk to the cast, there is like an NPC feeling to them. Like they'll talk to you, and it's like, okay, if I say it feels like you need to give them the appropriate like code word or something to get them to like tell you what to do next.
Yes. Yeah. Like sometimes it almost feels like I remember playing like Breath of the Wild last year, and it was kind of like sometimes you'd walk into a new town, and there's a whole bunch of like the NPCs who are all just standing there, like doing an activity, fishing or something. And you might go up and walk up to one of them and like, I love fishing. This is so much fun. What are you up to? You know, or whatever. And it's like, and that's it. That's all they would say. And you could keep going up to them, and they would just keep saying, I love fishing.
Yeah.
But then like maybe you go and like talk to the king, and you're like, one of the fishermen has stolen my bandana, you know, like go and find which fisherman it is, and you know, whatever. And then you go and talk to the fisherman, and then he's like, oh, I lost it. You know, if you can go down river and collect these 3 things, then you might be able to trade it in for whatever. And
right.
It's like it felt like inside of the world, or inside of the ship, it felt at times like maybe this is happening. Like you could go up and talk to a character, and it's like, if you have something you're supposed to tell them, then a plot can advance. And otherwise, it's just sort of like they're going to have general conversation within the scope of traveling aboard the Halcyon.
Right. It's like, yeah, welcome to the engine room. Do you know what you're doing around here? And you're like, we found a secret lever. And it's like, oh, that's the whatchamacallit, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But if you just, I don't know. I would say if I had like any like, now I don't even know if criticism is the right word. It was just like this feeling of not knowing like what level of like, side questing or things were available, or like what to expect in that sort of regard. It was like that there's really just the main storyline, or at least like, because you and I went into it like we want to try and like uncover as many secrets as possible.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it didn't feel like maybe there were as many secrets
to uncover.
Yeah. Like ultimately.
And I mean, so this is like, obviously we're there with a ton of different media. So like all of the different people that we were there with are probably covering it from a slightly different angle based on like what their channels are, like what they cover, what do they do? Like maybe they're really well known for their bounding or like cosplay type stuff or whatever. And so what they're attempting to do is showcase those things as best as possible.
Yeah.
But what we do is try to find the secrets. Like we want to find the things that like are off the beaten path or whatever. And I do feel like it was slightly to our detriment.
I do think so, because I think me and you really wanted to walk away and be like, okay, top 10 things you need to do. Like, definitely ask the bartender about his time with the Wookiee, or, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, make sure you talk to this person and ask them about that. And I won't tell you what happens, but like, do it.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
And it's like, there's not a whole lot of that happening.
And the thing is that it's entirely possible that some of that stuff exists. It's just like, maybe it's kind of hard to find it if you're feeling around in the dark.
Sure.
You know, like it's I don't know, similar to like when I was again playing Breath of the Wild, I felt like at some point in time I had done most of the things. It's like, I don't know how to find, apparently there's supposed to be like one more like, you know, thing I need to enter over here. And it's like, it's actually like built into the side of the mountain. You have to like hang glider and be in the exact right spot in order to like swoop in. And you know, it's like, unless someone tells you, that's some pretty aggressive exploration that you need to be doing. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, once I do, it's kind of like, oh, that was pretty cool. Like who'd have thought in the side of this mountain range, there's like this, like, you know, this one area you can crack through.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that we thought if we just played the game really aggressively, which is how we would approach things anyway, that we would find a bunch of these. And ultimately that was one area, where we didn't. And then it was kind of hard to know, like, did we miss a couple of opportunities to be involved with the main plot because we were spending so much time trying to figure out what that lever that maybe we weren't supposed to find at all does?
So like, so we had like a couple of situations, and like, I don't know if like we were just like thinking about it wrong, or if maybe stuff like this will be added in the future, or if it was just I don't know. But like, for example, we're in the engineering room on the first day, we're just sort of exploring the ship. And like, first of all, well, the light spoilers, I'll just say, like in the brig, there's like a trap door that leads into the engine room.
Yes.
And it's pretty easy to discover. And like I think you'd have found it anyway. Don't worry.
I think that one's pretty okay. But
that one's pretty okay.
The very, very brief of it is that like the brig door was open, and it was kind of like, if you walk into the brig, there's like a vent shaft on the ground. And if you slide, like, or what you can discover is that you can slide that vent shaft and go through it, and then you end up in the engineering room.
Right. And so like we found that, and it was like, ooh, this is like a secret entrance into the engineering room. This is so cool.
Yeah.
And then once we were in there, then we found some like, you know, there's just like a bunch of little puzzles you can solve that involve like teamwork, and you have to like pull certain levers at the same time and stuff like that. And it's, you know, it's fun little games to play. There's no real like ramifications of it. It just seems like the ship is constantly malfunctioning, and if you want to sit there and try and like fix it, then you can.
Right, but there is no finishing.
Yeah,
like there's no like winning.
Yeah, there's no like
the ship.
Yeah, there's no winning fixing the ship. But so anyway, down in the engineering room, there's like a little closet, and you can open it, and we're like reaching around inside of it, just like, you know, oh, is there anything in here or anything? And Beth finds this like silver like metal handle.
Yeah.
And like, if you've ever been to like a theme park and you're waiting in line, like often there'll be lots of really cool props to like help entertain you while you wait, but it's all like completely nailed down. You can't move any of it at all. And everything in this closet was exactly that way. Like you couldn't move any of it except this one handle. And so suddenly we were like, oh, like we found a secret way into a back room, into the engine room. And now we found like a loose handle, and it's like, you know, it feels like any other, like it felt like very video game, like like, you know, you walk into a room and it's like, yeah, most of the things you can't interact with, but the thing you can interact with always does something.
Right. Yeah.
So it was like, we found it. It was like, this must do something. And so we go and we talk to the other, you know, one of the people working in the engine room. We're like, does this go anywhere? And you get like, I think basically what actually happened is the closet was not supposed to be unlocked. And that this is just sort of where they keep this tool for a later part of the story.
Yeah.
And they look down at it and they're like, that goes in there. And we're like, yes, but does it go anywhere else? And like, clearly she would like had to like pivot and be like, yes, I'll show you where it goes. Like, I think you can use it to fix this thing over here. And basically we were, you know, you just used it to like pull a lever and you could like disconnect some pipes somewhere.
Yeah.
And
the like basically what it gave us for finding this random artifact was a very, very small payoff. In terms of like we're in a room that we feel like we've now secretly entered. We've found something that we weren't supposed to find. We asked somebody, and sure enough, there is a function to it. And that function is basically just moving some things.
Yeah. And it's like ultimately then what we later or quickly learned was that like there is the secret door entrance to it, but there's also just a regular door entrance to the engineering room, which we just hadn't found yet.
Yep.
And I think, yeah, so and ultimately that lever is used later as part of the main story, but just as part of like fixing the ship in a more plot driven way.
Yeah.
Like where you need to do it to actually advance the plot. But that's when the characters are down there with you, like telling you what to do. And
yeah. So you're not going to ignite the change by having discovered it. Like it's not like you, 'cause part of me almost thought like, oh man, we are about to make the whole ship jump into action right now. It's like, boom.
Yeah. Like, are we like, is the ship waiting for someone to find this or something?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
yeah.
Like, did we leave this open waiting? Yeah. Like I think stuff like that felt like it was possible, or like there was another time we were sitting at the bar and we ordered this like Mustafarian drink, and the Mustafar drink comes with this like test tube vial of, they say like, I don't know, lava rocks or whatever, which they're like, you can choose the spiciness level of your drink by how much you put into it. But then the bartender comes over and he's like, it's also really good if you need to pass secret notes, and like gives you a wink, and you're like, well. So he comes back and we're like, do you have any secret notes you need us to pass? You know, like,
right.
Like, why would you tell us that if not? So like in our mind, the way we thought of it was like, we just, by ordering this drink, we've like unlocked a side quest.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because I think they also said that like they're like the labels on the test tube itself, it's like it was a misprint. Like they weren't supposed to come in this way, but they did, and now it says something on it.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like this is cool.
It's like, this is cool. Like, oh, what a fun fact about the test tubes. And now, like, so we're like asking him, like, do you need us to send a secret message? And he's like, who's asking? And it's like, oh, like, did we enter into the middle of something? Was someone supposed to tell us to come order the drink and get the tube to pass a message, and now I don't have the correct answer? Or just like, I'm asking, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's like you're trying to play ball, but they like it's so, I don't know. This was like, the aspect of it that either maybe just isn't perfectly polished yet, or maybe we were trying to like lean in. I don't know if you've ever heard like somebody being like overqualified for a job, you know, like a job description.
Yeah.
It's like, what does that even mean, overqualified? It's like I want the job. I don't care if I'm overqualified. Like I applied, right? Like it's like sometimes what that means is that you're going to be like trying too hard to solve a problem that isn't as hard as you think it is to solve, because you're used to thinking of problems as difficult to solve.
Right.
And it's almost like you're thinking about it too aggressively. It's a lot simpler than you think.
Right.
It's like
you don't need to build a Rube Goldberg machine. You can just like carry that roll of tape from this side of the office to the other side of the office.
Yeah. Like, don't overthink something that is already simple. But I think that given who we are, given what we do, that's exactly what we were doing.
Yeah. And I think mostly what this guy, the bartender, was trying to do, like, it's just like, oh yeah, bartenders in Star Wars are always kind of like shady and like,
yeah,
like,
right. It's sort of just trying to like give you like a fun extra layer of like it's not just a test tube, you know, it's like,
right.
Like we use these, and it's like, oh, that's fun, you know, and it's probably like, that's probably where we should have just left is, oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
But if you've ever done an escape room, this was the other thing I could very easily compare it to, is like whenever I've gone into an escape room, I have always felt this really difficult divide between, like, there could be a bed that is, I don't know, bolted to the wall. And on the bottom side of the bed is like some scribbles from the quality control factory that were written whenever this bed was manufactured and has absolutely nothing to do with the escape room. It doesn't change the fact that there isn't Sharpie written on the bottom of that bed. And you're like, is this a clue? And it's like, it isn't. And it's like, oh, you know, it's like, it's like anything goes inside of the escape room, but some things don't go.
Right.
And that was, we were having a few of those moments.
I think so.
Yeah. Where it was like, it's like, oh.
Yeah. And it's just like, you didn't, and like, I don't know what I was expecting, or like, I don't know if it would have made the overall experience better. Like if, you know, sure, like if he gave us like a message to put in the tube and it was like, bring this message to Captain, you know, Veers or whatever. I can't remember the captain's name.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Bring this message to the captain. Like, and I think in my mind there was like if you find the quest where you have to bring a test tube with the message in it to the captain will give you like a pin or a patch or something. And it's like, now you have like a souvenir, like I completed this quest or something.
Yep, absolutely.
Like,
and which I actually think would be a great idea.
Yeah.
Would be, I mean, even if it's a sticker, you know, like you and I were talking about, like on the Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger spin in Magic Kingdom, for example, if you get the perfect score and then you go and tell the attendant afterwards, like, hey, look, I just got like a 999 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like they will then give you, what does the sticker say? Like Galactic.
Galactic Hero.
Galactic Hero. Yeah. And it's like, it's a piece of paper with adhesive on the back. It's not a big deal. It's not very expensive, but also it's kind of like, if you know, you know, and by knowing, it's fun.
Yeah.
And so I almost feel like, if you had like a little like merit badge type of book where it's like, oh yes, like I was able to complete like this, or even for that matter, like in Epcot, they will frequently have like tour the, I don't know, oh my gosh, my brain is not working today. What is the big circle called?
The Spaceship Earth?
No. The, like, where all the
World Showcase.
The World Showcase.
Yes.
Tour the World Showcase.
Yeah.
And it, you know, it's like go and stop at like this spot in Canada and this spot in France and this spot in Italy and this spot in Mexico. And like, if you get like all your stamps, then, you know, you can go and redeem it for this other thing. It's like, give us a passport or something where it's like, like the test tube mission. Now I have context for the test tube mission. And
right.
Look, I have a check mark in my book that I completed the test tube mission.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, that's just not there.
Yeah. And it's like, I to that end, it's like if they gave you a little book or something and it was like, go try and complete these missions, that I feel like then it does like take you out of the story. Like you're not playing the story as much. Like if there's like an inbuilt game to it that like, but I don't know. I feel like there are ways it could be incorporated in some capacity.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like there were so the way the datapad works is that it's incorporated into a pre-existing app that works with Disney parks called Disney Play. And like I think it's a really cool thing for kids because what it is like it's just little hidden things in the park that if you have the app, you can like typically scan something and it'll like give you points or something or give you like a digital item or something. And it's just like a cool extra layer that you're normally walking past in the parks. But if you're tuned into it, it's like a cool thing you can just kind of go do. So
it's like, it's just a little bit of an Easter egg.
Yeah. It's like a little Easter egg game you can do in the parks or whatever. And so like when we went down to Batu, like all of a sudden there's tons of these little like, there's like, you have a scanner built into your data pad. And if you scan these little QR codes that you can find on the crates, you can get access to whatever's in the crates. And it'll give you like you're like, oh, you found like a digital blast, or you found like a blaster. And it's like, it adds it to your inventory. And you're like, oh, it's so cool. But it's like, did you ever use that blaster for anything? No, because that wasn't really part of the Halcyon experience. It was just part of Disney Play and you were in the right spot and you did it and but like some things you would find, you'd be like, oh, you got like 7 more credits or something. And it's like, okay, cool. What do I use the credits for? Nothing. Like,
right.
But so like, even if that happened, if it was just like, oh yeah, like you delivered the note, thanks, here's an extra let me give you 10 credits or something. And then if you could go spend the credits or something somewhere.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. or yeah, like, how many times in Star Wars have you seen it where it's like they can't open the blast door, and so they shoot it with the blaster and then it just opens, and it's like, I don't exactly know what the actual electrical dealings are with, shooting the control panel and then it opening the door. But I also think sometimes they shoot the control panel to make it not open the door.
Yeah.
So it goes a little bit of both ways. But like, let's say, like you found a blaster and then you find a door that's locked, and it's sort of like, instead of it just being like, you don't have the proper credentials, it's like, would you like to use your blaster to enter this door? It's like, yes. Like, that's exactly what I want to happen. And it's like, okay, bleep. And then it's like the door opens and you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just little things. I don't know, Disney, if you're listening, we're happy to come consult.
We'll go. But it's like, I don't know. Like, is that their goal? Are they trying to gamify it at all? Or is it just like, you're just living through the story? And like, maybe those are just different objectives, and that's just that.
Right.
And we're just thinking about it incorrectly. But there are also other like actual sort of inbuilt mini games in the experience. Like when you go to the bridge training, this was like really fun. Like, you sort of cycle through these 4 different stations, and each one is like this kind of like mini game you play with like the control panels that you always see like people using in Star Wars with all the flashing lights and switches and dials. And it's always like, oh, I wonder what all those things do. And it's like, you get to play with them. And like one of them lets you shoot lasers at like incoming TIE fighters or asteroids or whatever is outside the ship. And one is like a little puzzle game, and you have to try and like, undo or flip as many switches as possible in the correct order, and stuff like that. And they're all really fun as you're doing them, but you do it for the bridge training, and then you just sort of leave, and it comes up again later as part of the actual story. And it's so like, you already know what to do during that point, but it's like, you can't go back and just play it in the meantime, which feels like it would have been really fun to just kind of go like, oh yeah, the bridge is open, it's not being used for anything, can we go play the games?
Right.
Or something.
Yeah. So there's a couple of like little details like that, or even like, like, I don't want to really think of it as if you were like competing with the other passengers, but it does feel like there could be like an air quotes arcade sense.
Yeah.
Like, where at a typical resort, for example, there may just literally be an arcade you could go and play in with like skee ball.
Yeah.
And the idea here might be that like they've definitely 100% top to bottom Star Warsified everything to do with it. It's definitely not skee ball. It is definitely a game that was invented for the experience, but it's like, an arcade is still an aspect of a resort. Like, you could still treat it like an arcade and like let people go and rack up scores and have like a leaderboard and stuff like that. Like, who's the top shieldsman of the ship?
Yeah.
And like, you get like a little tiny piece of notoriety that, I don't know, it's just fun to...
Right, I can see that being like, because like everyone has to go do the lightsaber training or something.
Right.
So it would be interesting if like at the end, like it's because there are like, musters or whatever where the whole ship comes together.
Yep.
If they were like, well, everyone went through the saber training, and our best crew member was, if you got like a tiny little medal or something for being the
person
who
like blocked the most blaster shots.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it would seem like that, because there were times where like you had completed all your comms and you were just sort of waiting for the next thing to happen, and like they fill up your schedule, and the stuff you can do, if you want to go like play in the sabacc tournament, or if you want to get lunch, or if you want to there was like dance lessons at one point for so you knew how to do the dance for the Gaia concert. But it's like, you might not be interested in every little thing happening, but if you could just kind of go play some games or something, maybe you would. But I don't know. It's just hard to know. Like, were we thinking about it wrong in terms of it being like a game, or is it just like it's meant to mostly be a story?
Right. And I think that's probably the big takeaway, is that like the plot is always trudging forward, and the plot is always going where it's going. It's sort of like you get to choose how much of it you want to be there for.
Right.
And probably some of it is almost like watching the like, if you are someone who is a Star Wars fan to the tune of like, you watch like the main movies, but you don't watch like Clone Wars or Rebels or Bad Batch or Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian, like these offshoots.
Yeah.
It's like, you can still easily go and enjoy the main episodes, no problem at all. You might know like a little extra detail if you've consumed all those others, like, oh, that's that person. I know them from the thing. Yeah. So it's kind of like, no matter what, if all you do is just follow the main plot that they're showing you, like in the central atrium, it's like, you'll understand what happened.
Yeah.
It's just mostly like, do you want to be able to be like, oh, but I also know how this person got in and where and why they were here. And
right.
Yeah. So anyway, it was an incredible experience.
Yes.
It was really, really, really cool. I think it's kind of funny because I feel like we did our review of it last week on the Super Carlin Brothers channel, where I think we talked about like everything we were mind blown with. And I feel like everything we just went through was maybe more of like our critiques.
Yeah.
On the whole, I would say that it's a pretty unreal experience. There's a couple of like footnotes here, being one is that it's a rather expensive thing to do.
Right.
And I think it's, a little bit of a niche market in terms of people who can afford it first and foremost, people who are super Star Wars fans, and then people who want to be involved with this live action interactive,
like improv style experience.
Yeah.
But if it's all a matter of like, what's like, if it is your dream to live in the Star Wars universe for 2 days, then fantastic news. That now exists. Like, you now can.
There is no better way to do it.
There is no better way to do it. It's extremely immersive. And even though it's like like for us, it was a 2-night stay. Like, what was kind of cool about it is that like once you're on the ship, it's like you're in space.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even sure they didn't have some effect going in the building that like simulated getting your sea legs or something.
It did seem like that. You and I both independently noticed that, like, like in the first, I don't know, maybe hour of being on there, we're kind of like, is it like a little bit of a weeble wobble?
Yeah, it felt like a little weeble wobble happening. I was like, I don't know why they would intentionally do this other than to make it seem more realistic, which it did.
Yeah.
Or if it was just that like the environment and the every window you look at, like there's no like true windows. Like you were saying, you never see the state of Florida once it happens. Like all the windows in the ship look out to space.
Yep.
So like maybe your brain just like subconsciously takes that in and is like, hey, this is weird. I'm in space.
Right. Yeah. It's like your brain is like trying to tell you where you are.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. So the other big thing I've said about this too is that like if it ends up not being successful, like if this ends up sort of being like, oh, like, like 20 years ago they tried to do this thing, it won't be because it isn't good. Like that, if there ends up being a situation where like this doesn't remain a property, or if it's like too niche, it's not because it's not the quality's not there.
Yeah.
Like once you get there, even if it's a huge stretch to be able to financially do it, you're not going to be like, you're not going to be wondering like, well, like where did my money go? Like what am I paying for? It's like, you'll know. So this is like one of those like weird rules of Disney that you can pick up on if you if you've been a few times, is that like Disney is never not giving you your money's worth on stuff. They're just not giving you the option to not pay for a lot. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they don't believe in diet anything.
There's only the large popcorn.
Yeah, there's only the large popcorn. It's not like, oh yeah, let me get this. It's like you might order like, a $15 chicken finger platter or something and be like, man, prices at Disney, $15 for chicken fingers. And it's like, they gave you $15 worth of chicken fingers. Don't you worry.
Oh yeah.
Like it's a lot. The trick is there's no option to buy less than $15 worth of chicken fingers. So to that end, it's like you will get what you pay for. It's like the price tag on it is high, but like, is the value there? Like, yes,
it is.
It is there. It's just like, there's no way to get this experience for cheaper.
Right.
But you will get everything you pay for.
Yep. So I'm really, 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 really curious to know, because I know there were tons of people there this past weekend kind of going through the process, going through all this stuff. I'm curious to see what the general like mood is towards it, like what the excitement is towards it. And like, even with all that in mind, is this just the first of its kind? Like, is there a scenario where there's a Marvel campus you go and stay at. That's just like this, but like you're at Avengers HQ and you're
right. And you're like, seeing, Captain America and Iron Man walking around, and all of a sudden, no, Ultron's attacking and they need your help.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, it feels like it's like so cutting edge that there could be more of this.
It does feel possible. Like there could be more, especially I would bet there will be, especially if this is successful.
Yes. Yeah. Yep, exactly. So definitely let us know what you think. If you have any other questions about it, if you have any feedback for us about this particular experience. I know that we talked about it on the Super Carlin Brothers channel. We have a vlog that's coming out about it, and we've talked about it here on the Pop. So hopefully in some capacity you will be able to have seen our general sentiment and feelings towards all of the things one way or another, and get a better feel for what exactly was going on. So if you want to send in any of that feedback, you can send it over to popcornculturepod@gmail.com. Again, if you would like to check out our fantastic top 10 facts you didn't know about Abe Lincoln, we have that entire episode of After the Final Pop available over at patreon.com/popcornculture. Sort of under that umbrella is the idea that each week after each episode, Jay and I record After the Final Pop. It's an extra 15 to 20 minutes of bonus pop content for you at the $5 tier. Again, patreon.com/popcornculture. But otherwise, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time,
pop.